People who realized they had bad therapists, what were the red flags? 1. So I went to child therapy back in the day, but the therapist always had my dad in the room with my sisters and I. Because of that I was never able to tell her about how he was abusing my sisters and I. I remember every time I answered a question I'd be looking at him for an okay on the answer. She literally never caught on. 2. I was 13. The therapist was an older woman who upon first meeting me said to my mother that I was on coke. I wasn't, and that my father and or brother were aping me. My father and brother have never, ever touched me like that. This was one sick woman who needed help herself. 3. When he was on the news for banging a client, it was his arrest photo because that's a crime. He was our marriage counselor, and he was married. So was the client. 4. The one I went to after my suicide attempt at 16 had some, not so compassionate opinions. My very first session, one thing I told her was that I was bullied a lot at school. Her response was, well, suicide attempts are usually done in order to manipulate others. So, since you were capable of that, did you ever consider maybe you were the bully? I really never spoke to her again. I had to go weekly because of my attempt, but I just sat in silence every session until I could stop going. Equating my suicide attempt to me being a manipulator after knowing me for probably less than 20 minutes was just, no. 5. When I disclosed that I had been S8'd at a party in college, he told me it wasn't real ape, because they hadn't tied me up. Made me blame myself for years, ended up diagnosed with PTSD from the S8 over a decade later. 6. We sat there in silence for a few moments and then he said, I've been doing coffee enemas. Dude, what? That was the last time I saw him. 7. I went to an appointment and the door was locked. I waited 15 minutes and called him. No response. He texted me back a few minutes later and said he had the flu and was in bed and sorry he didn't call to cancel. I went to the grocery store instead. I saw him shopping. He ducked when he saw me. I never went back to him and he never called to ask why.